Hi, I'm Pete Hansen. Welcome today to our studio as we discuss a pretty interesting set of topics all about different forms of management and leadership, and we'll get into that in a second. Let me introduce our guest today, who is Charles Amonett. Charles, you are a retired author and speaker.
That's right.
And you received an MBA from BYU.
That's right.
Well, in what area was that in BYU?
It was just general business.
Okay, very good. You worked for several years for the the state of Utah.
That's right.
As the program director for unemployment insurance.
Right.
I'm not even sure what that means, but that's, we'll get into that.
I ran technology projects and managed grants.
Okay, very good. You've worked extensively in the private industry and also for the federal government.
That's right.
That sounds like a very broad
Yes.
area of your life.
I have a very broad work background.
Very nice. And thank you for your service. You served in Vietnam
That's right.
In which branch?
Air Force.
In the Air Force. Well, thank you again for your service and that you've done so well since then. We're going to talk about some concepts that you have been teaching in business and leadership seminars. And the program is called the 12 Good Leadership Values Which Dumb Managers Don't Understand.
Exactly.
What a great title. Just kind of give us an idea of what that's all about.
Well, basically, there are probably 1 million good leadership values, and I could kind of have pontificated upon many, but these are some very core values that help people feel valued, appreciated, and therefore tends to inspire them to be very productive. And good managers, whether they're conscious of how they're applying these or not, tend to understand them and use them, and you can tell the effect that they have as a high-performance work team. Managers who have disgruntled employees for cause, and managers who have low productivity in their units would be the dumb managers who don't understand.
And there are probably a few of them out there.
A few, at least.
So how is it that you came across these core values?
Well, I think the school of life, not necessarily the MBA program, taught me these values. I had been extensively involved in work and business before I got my MBA, but having started in fact in the Air Force as an enlisted man, and sir, yes sir, may I ask a question, sir?
Right.
And seeing managers or officers who maybe didn't understand how to inspire troops, and also working in several private industry and government work environments. That's the benefit of my broad work background. I've seen all kinds of managers with different kinds of styles, those who inspired their employees and their fellow workers, and those who basically collected their paycheck and were an impediment to the success of the business. So these, over a lifetime, I saw these work especially effectively at the state. I worked with professional program specialists, and they were actually, as a whole, high performers. And we did technology projects, and I saw these values implemented successfully and the benefits of the values. And so I felt like they were something I had to get down and share with others before I just got so disinterested in my retirement that I forgot about them.
So that kind of leads into the why.
Yeah.
Why you created this seminar, this course.
Yeah, basically the why was encapsulated in the idea that they are values that benefit others, that make work a lot more pleasant, enjoyable, and productive for everybody. And they were values that I'd seen work in action, believed in, and I wanted to share them.
Very good. Now, you can look at these values, and I've seen the list, and so I know kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit. But if you look at these values, these have importance not only in the business world, but also can relate very well to the family life.
That's true.
So as we go through these different points, we want to make sure that you think about this not only from running your business, but also how am I treating my family?
Yes, and there's a kind of an underlying concept that differentiates the application of these in business and in family. In business, people can be fired. In family, you cannot. So the principles of long suffering and patience and love in spite of whatever challenges that arise apply in families more so than business.
Yes, definitely. That's a great point. Very good. Well, so not to give it all away, let's go ahead and get into some of these things. I guess, but before we do that, this is a book that you've written.
Yes.
Where can we find this book?
It's available for sale in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com.
Okay, so look up 12 Good Leadership Values Which Dumb Managers Don't Understand. Awesome. All right, Charles, take us into it. How do we
Okay.
start this?
Well, let me just, I have a PowerPoint here that I've developed. And so we'll start with the general concept of who is a leader. A leader is anyone who influences outcomes regardless of their role in an organization. And we make the point managers and leaders are not necessarily the same. Although managers are given leadership titles and occupy leadership positions in organizations, they may or may not be leaders.
Very true.
Yeah. And there are obviously good leaders and bad leaders, just as there are good managers and bad managers. And then we'll define a good leader. A good leader is someone whose influence inspires positive outcomes. And then a good manager is a good leader who applies effective management skills.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. That's a good differentiation.
Yes, it is. And so value one, this is an important value that I think that all of us benefit from applying, and that is plan ahead.
It seems so basic, doesn't it?
It does, but it's incredible how many times we or others don't apply that and then reap the effects of not applying it. So we'll start out with the concept of constantly having to react at the last minute to emergencies is annoying to most people and makes them feel like puppets. I think everybody would agree with that general statement. Most people enjoy having a certain amount of self-direction over their work and their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And failure to plan tends to increase the number of emergencies and tends to magnify the scope of those emergencies.
Oh, yeah, okay, so rather than putting out fires every day,
Uh-huh.
you plan for those fires or plan for the needs, and you never have fires.
Well, I don't, about the never say never.
Okay, you got me.
You have a reduced number of fires.
Sure,
You,
sure.
By planning ahead, you eliminate all those fires that can be avoided by not hooking up 20 outlets to the same plug, et cetera, the things that a little forethought would avoid. So moving along here, planning simply involves thinking through scenarios in advance and making reasonable preparations to handle them. In other words, a person doesn't have to be a genius to be a good planner. All a person has to do is just think ahead and say, okay, what's reasonable in view of what I have to do and what I have to accomplish, what's reasonable for me to do to prepare for that. We all know when a scheduled report will be due, when an assignment needs to be completed, or when other stated deadlines need to be met. So there are things that we're informed of,
Right.
and so we just need to accept that and address it. Life and jobs have recurring cycles involving bills to be paid, meetings to be attended, and expected requirements needing completion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of what's coming down the pike is not a mystery.
No.
We're told in advance what to expect. Okay, ignoring known obligations or procrastinating results in problems. I'm sure that general statement probably sinks true to most people. Good leaders think through in advance what will be required in order to meet their obligations, and they arrange circumstances so they are prepared when the time comes. Again, don't have to be a genius, just have to think ahead and say what's reasonable for me to do to prepare for this.
That's right, it's the reactive versus the proactive.
Exactly, exactly. Good leaders use calendars and to-do lists to write down ahead of time what they are supposed to do and when they are supposed to do it. You know, it may seem tedious for someone to write a to-do list, but given the fact that most of us don't have an unexhausted or unexhaustible memory, we can't remember everything, keep everything current at one time. It's nice to have a piece of paper to look back on after the 20,000 distractions happened from the time you thought of what you had to do to the time that you have to prepare for it. So to-do
Exactly.
list.
I know my mornings or my days go much better if I take those few minutes or those many minutes, whatever it takes, to just write out what has to be crossed off. Just
Exactly.
get this done. And that's a long list most mornings.
Yes, it is. It is. But it's amazing how doing that keeps our activities focused so that we end up having most or all of the list crossed off at the end of the day instead of just saying, oh, I forgot about those 10 things that I knew I had to do at the beginning of the day and then did something else.
I'm not sure if that's an age-related thing or not, but the older I get, the more I forget what I should. The older I get, the more I forget what I should be doing.
Well, I think it's a human-related thing as much as an age-related thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Of course, now here's the reality. The unexpected will happen and emergencies will arise.
Yes.
There's just no getting away from that. However, planning for what is known and preparing for what is predictable promotes peace of mind and helps minimize turmoil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point. If you're doing a routine, you know how things work. Emergencies don't really cause a big shakeup.
Yeah, and but if you're dealing with what you know is coming effectively, then you don't have 20 emergencies because you had one that came up unexpectedly and 19 that you should have taken care of but that you didn't plan on taking care of.
There you go.
So, okay, so value 2.
And let me just interject 1 second.
Sure.
We will take time at the end of the values and go through examples.
Yes, we
so
will.
we're kind of cruising through them right now
On a concept level.
Get the ideas there. We will come back and talk more in detail.
And the reason we're doing that is because the concepts are all interrelated. And so to take one out of context then would kind of detract from its integration with the rest of them. So therefore it's better to kind of talk about them as a whole and then use examples having expressed the whole of the concepts together and then put that one concept focusing on one of those aspects, but seeing it in context of the whole.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so value 2. The best excuse is the one you don't have to make. Now, no matter how good our honest explanation is for why we did something we shouldn't or why we didn't do something we should have, we would rather not have to explain our error. Hence, the best excuse is the one we don't have to make because we avoided making the error in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean that's just kind of human reality. Human beings make errors.
Yes.
I mean there are none of us that go through a day without having some error at some level on something. So we do that. However, the number of errors and the seriousness of the errors can be minimized. Mm-hmm. Thinking through things in advance and planning ahead are two of the best ways to minimize making significant errors.
Yeah.
It's like, for instance, just off the top of our head, jumping in a car and racing down the street because we're 5 minutes late to an appointment that we should have thought about in the first place. That's very likely to lead to a problem that we're going to have to explain, either justify ourselves or ashamedly admit that we were just totally at fault or something. Where if we thought about what we're supposed to do and said, well, I got to leave at 10 minutes early and I'm not going to speed, or if we do find ourselves 5 minutes late, we say, okay, I'm going to stay the speed limit because if I go racing around carelessly and distractedly, I'm going to cause an accident. Then I'm going to have a big problem. It's better to be a few minutes late than to have, so et cetera. The concept is, thinking through things in advance, whether it's in an emergency situation or in a avoid the whole thing situation.
I love how that builds on the first concept of planning ahead.
Right, exactly.
When I take a few minutes, plan my day, those needs I need to take care of that day are now in my head and I have ideas for them throughout the day.
Oh, that is so true. And that ties into a concept that we'll be talking about
Awesome.
very shortly. Okay, value 3, ask, don't order. Here, this whole section deals with how we treat other people, and that how we treat other people, especially in an employment setting, affects how they perform, how they feel about their job. So this is not just an altruistic comment, it's a very realistic comment about the duty we owe to other people. So ask, don't order. Giving orders may be appropriate for the military or in an emergency. And I was in the military, and there's a place for orders in an emergency situation or in the military. However, in most organizations, and referring to business and that sort of thing, ordering people around is neither appropriate nor desirable. Normally, a manager should not need to give orders to his or her direct reports. Simply asking employees to perform work-related assignments should be sufficient. Employees are hired with the understanding that they will be paid for performing work which benefits the organization. This is kind of the stated or unstated contract.
Exactly.
So therefore, phrases like will you or would you be willing to are effective ways to request an employee's help. Asking is more courteous, shows more respect, and recognizes others' willingness to voluntarily cooperate. A manager who asks instead of orders demonstrates more inner strength and shows greater trust in others and helps create a more positive work environment.
Very good.
And like I said, these came from my life experiences. I've been on the receiving end of poorly packaged management requests versus inspiring management requests.
And I know I'm guilty of not being so nice all the time. And
Well, I think
asking
we
for
all
things.
are.
Yeah.
You know, that's just part of the human condition that
Yeah.
we try to kind of keep managed. There are other dimensions too. Is asking also encourages feedback. Employees who are asked to do an assignment are implicitly given an opportunity to agree or disagree. If they agree, they've committed to do what they were asked to do, and therefore they become accountable. Another very important management concept. And if they disagree, they have an opportunity to say why they disagree.
Okay.
Well, that may be something we don't expect, but there might be benefit there. There may be valid reasons why employees don't want to do what they are asked. Perhaps doing what was asked may cause an undesirable outcome of which the manager was unaware. If so, the employee feedback will help avoid the problem. Like, for instance, turn on that motor over there. Well, I would, boss, but it'll blow up the entire building. You know?
Small things like that.
Yeah, small things like that.
That's not a real life experience, is it,
No,
for you?
no, in this
good.
case it's not.
Just checking.
But perhaps the employee is not capable of doing what was asked, and if so, additional training may be appropriate. And that's a real situation that needs to be faced
Well,
and
that's
dealt
a good
with.
point. Yeah,
Sure,
that's an excellent
and,
point.
you know,
Yeah. I don't
employees
know
need-
how to do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
and better to have them admit it and not do it, or therefore be trained to do it properly, than to blunder ahead and say, "Well, gee, Sarge, this button keeps spinning. How come?" Well, then perhaps the employee is just uncooperative. Now, that's a possibility, and in that case, corrective action or termination may be appropriate.
Sure.
So, like I said, a work situation is different than a family situation. And of course, employees should not be asked to perform non-job related functions, and that's just a boundary of appropriateness. Okay, value 4. Get input from other competent people and consider alternatives. And that's kind of what you hinted at there earlier, of alternatives and different ideas. Okay, some managers suppose that whatever pops into their mind is brilliant, right, and always the best solution.
It's not? Wait.
What a shock, huh? I think we've all seen that. You know, the manager that's so convinced that because they're the manager, that therefore all the ideas that enter their mind are the very best. They think that because they're the managers, they automatically have the best ideas. And of course, I think we'd all agree that such thinking is ridiculous. Every human idea can be improved and enhanced and refined by getting input from other competent people and by considering alternatives. I mean, there's not one of us that are so smart that we have all the answers in our head, and if we throw an idea out, if we consider alternatives and we surround ourselves with input from competent people, we're going to get some improvements in that good idea to start with, and even a vast improvement with a bad idea to start with. Okay, competent people. Who are competent people? Competent people are those who are insightful and informed and have some experience related to the question being considered. And the way I wrote that, insightful, sometimes the person is not experienced specifically in what you're talking about, but they're insightful. And they come up with good insights that maybe from general experience might relate. And they're informed. They have enough information to make a comment about at least part of what you're talking about, or they have some experience about what you're talking about. So these would be good sources of looking for competent people.
Yeah.
Alternatives, obviously, are different possible methods of dealing with a matter or different potential outcomes to solving the question at hand. And you know, we start sometimes with the method to solve the problem in mind, or the solution in mind, when perhaps we can tentatively have that position, but we ought to be open to the fact there might be a better solution, or there might be a better way to to deal with a problem or arrive at a good solution. So value 5, make decisions based on the merit of the idea. This is probably among the most valuable of all these very valuable values.
And they are all very valuable so far.
Yeah. So we ask ourselves, what is the merit of the idea? And we start out with kind of a little bit of an esoteric statement. The merit of the idea means the factors, qualities, and dimensions of a concept that reasonable people can perceive. Boiled down to simple English, that means an idea, what makes an idea meritorious means that its qualities and dimensions are perceivable as being meritorious.
Okay.
It makes sense.
It needs to appear to make sense and be a
Yes.
good thing.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well put. All ideas should be evaluated and judged based on their own merit. Now, there's kind of an analogy we can draw on that. If you ever played checkers as a boy, there were two ways to play. One is you had to take your jumps, or you didn't have to take your jumps. Games where you didn't have to take your jumps could go on forever, and it would just be a big conglomeration of checkers in the middle of the board. Games where you had to take your jumps, somebody could win and somebody would lose. So if we have a standard upon which to make a decision, that is, make our decision or judgments based on the idea with the most merit, we take the argument out of it. We take some of the subjectivity, the emotionality, and the self-serving perspectives that could arise out of it. And we say, okay, based on a reasonable evaluation agreed upon by reasonable people, this is the most meritorious idea, therefore we will make our decision on that basis.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Okay, decisions should obviously be based on the idea with the most merit. Every organization is different with different purposes, objectives, and resources. So for instance, what may be an idea that has the most merit for a multi-billion-dollar corporation may not be the same idea, or an idea that may not be the same idea that would make sense for a mom and pop shop somewhere.
Correct.
So you have to kind of look at what the purposes, objectives, and resources of your organization are to decide what is the best meritorious idea for your particular situation.
Right, so going to the library and getting the hot business book from the big corporation and you
Right.
trying to use that or implement that in your business may not work the same.
May not work the same at all, exactly. So there may be some concepts in the
Sure,
book that
yeah.
are applicable, but maybe every process in that book just isn't going to work. So the idea with the most merit is that idea which best helps accomplish the purposes and objectives of an organization using the resources the organization has available. So for instance, back to the multi-billion-dollar company and the mom and pop shop. If the mom and pop shop has $1,000 to invest in a technological upgrade, then and the multi-billion-dollar industry has $1 million, well, buying $500,000 worth of technology is not going to be the wise solution for the mom and pop shop. Their resources don't extend that far, therefore that's out of the scope of a reasonable decision. So
I hear those discussions all the time within our business, and
Yeah.
so I know exactly what you're talking about.
sure, yeah. I mean, it's all easy for someone to say that that this pie in the sky solution is the best. Why? Because it's the best. Well, it's the best, but we can't do it, and it's not achievable. So therefore, it's the worst.
It's the worst. So what options do we have? Exactly.
Yeah, that actually work. Okay, so then we come down to this kind of brainstorming that you were intimating there. Freely sharing creative ideas inspires the perception of other creative ideas.
Yes.
Yes, and sometimes even overall weak ideas can have a meritorious detail which may lead to a better solution.
Well, that's the rule of brainstorming.
Yes,
there are no
exactly.
bad ideas.
Yeah.
They may be bad, but you still throw them out there because of the impact or the impression on your mind, and you get new ideas. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. I love brainstorming.
Sure. And considering the pros and cons of all ideas expressed in an open discussion helps surface the best ideas. Now, the term open discussion here is being introduced, and that's a key factor in getting the best ideas out. In these discussions, all participants should have an equal right to express their thoughts and have their ideas considered. So, I mean, we probably have seen, or maybe some of us have seen, situations where the boss sits in a brainstorming session and the boss is wearing his or her stripes on the sleeve, and everybody else is totally conscious of that. So the boss expects that whatever the boss says is going to be right, and everybody else kind of knows what the game is, so they agree with that. And so they don't freely express their ideas.
Right.
In the technology projects we ran successfully, the stripes came off. Everybody had an equal right to contribute. Everybody had an equal right to have their ideas fully considered. And the ideas rose or fell on their own merit. And there was no personality involved. It wasn't like, okay, you're more, you have more longevity here, therefore we're going to kind of lean towards your ideas. The idea was totally treated as if it was not part of the personality. It was just on its own merit. So the process of getting input from competent people and considering alternatives leads to discovering the idea with the most merit. See, this just kind of works as we've talked. This is building here. Right-thinking, reasonable people in an organization will generally agree on which idea has the most merit when they participate in an open discussion. So a couple key terms here, right thinking. I mean, there are people that have an agenda, or maybe there's just something wrong with their perspective that is colored or affected for some other reason that would not be counted as right-thinking people for the purposes of this, conversation. And reasonable people. Reasonable people are people who will consider other points of view and will not push so hard on their own that they are blind to an idea that's better. And when I say generally agree, no group of people 100% agrees on everything. So generally agree is that most of the people will generally agree. And I think if the value systems are shared sufficiently well in a uniform manner, there can be a full consensus. But the reality is in business organizations, management by complete consensus may be a little hard to achieve. Situations where the entire organization is paralyzed by the disagreement of one person is probably not beneficial for productivity or anything else. So if the majority of reasonable people agree and see the merit, that should be a reasonable basis for making a decision.
Good.
And the open discussion idea we've hinted at, backroom discussions where people take their selfish motives and selfish purposes and self-serving ideas and come up with a process or plan, don't work out in the open. Nobody wants to raise their hand and say, oh, well, I don't want to do that because it will interfere with this selfish side thing I've got going. If everything's out in the open, people will generally want to adhere and express and agree to honorable and honest and actionable, appropriately actionable items.
Now you're talking about government.
Yeah, so yeah, there is, like I said, I worked for the government also, and also worked for private industry. I saw a private company that was deficient in many of these factors. I won't go into it. But so we come down to the bottom line is managers are responsible to help identify and act upon ideas which have the most merit in their organization. So that's where leadership comes. Yeah. When the idea with the most merit has been identified, surfaced, and generally confirmed, then the manager is the one that's responsible to kind of bring that out to action and implementation.
Correct.
Okay.
Awesome.
So value 6, be interested in other people and ask them questions. Again, this may sound to some people like okay, this is a sociology, social worker type attitude, but it's not.
No.
Yeah, I think you understand that. It's very clear that you do.
Yeah, if I have no interest in you or
right.
care about you, I don't care about what you say.
That's right. And you don't care about what I do. You don't care about my work well-being.
Yeah.
So all these things. So and let's just take a look at have you ever talked to people have you ever talked to people who are so self-focused that everything they say is about themselves or things relating to them? I have. I think we've all met someone like that to some degree. Do you soon start feeling like an inanimate object which they're using for their own convenience?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. These self-focused people lack empathy and they are not interested in other people. And interest in others is a key motivating factor, really. Genuine interest. There are times, of course, when talking about oneself is appropriate and even desired, like in a job interview or when a friend wants an update. Such times, however, are by nature not simply selfish self-centeredness. They are requested responses to inquiries or sharing with friends. So there's plenty of time and place for that. Managers, as well as fellow employees, should be interested in other people.
Yes.
Asking people questions about themselves and their experiences and their opinions helps you to get to know and understand them. Understanding people helps build relationships which facilitate getting along and working together. Interest in others also helps develop empathy. Now, here's a key point. Empathy does not mean that you need to agree with others' perspectives. Sometimes you can completely disagree with somebody and have empathy for them, i.e., the essential nature of empathy is that you understand others' perspectives from their point of view.
Right.
Understanding others' points of view helps you relate to them more effectively. So we're moving on then to value 7. all people, again, this is not just a kind of a feel-good concept. This is a reality concept. All people are of equal significance to God, regardless of talents, abilities, or circumstances. And why is this important? Because if we have an underlying appreciation for the fact that we are all equal as human beings, even though some others may have more talents than we do, more abilities, or better circumstances, if we all understand that we are equal as human beings, that helps create that respect, that interest, and that cooperation that makes things work.
Well, that's exactly what the Founding Fathers did.
Yes.
In the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. That
Exactly.
was the whole point of putting us all on an equal plane.
Right, exactly. Now, some people, again, we pointed out a bad example last time. We'll start with a bad example this time. Some people perceive life as a hierarchy. They rank people on a subjective scale of significance. They believe that people who are less talented, less able, or who are in less favorable circumstances are less significant. This perspective supports the selfish belief that less significant people don't deserve to be treated fairly. And there we get down to the bottom line. It's fair treatment.
Yeah.
The reality is that all people are of equal significance to God, regardless of their talents, abilities, or circumstances. Of course, talents, abilities, and circumstances do affect how successful people are in their performance. That's an obvious thing, and that's just something that needs to be recognized. However, a distinction needs to be made between people's significance as human beings and their performance. In other words, the person who is not as capable of performing on a high level should be respected the same as a person who, in their best efforts, can't perform or can perform at a high level. Okay. In other words, they're equal as human beings. They should be respected equally and treated fairly equally, even though we recognize that the high performers' talents may apply to help us achieve a certain goal better than the lower performers. So then, bottom line, all people should be treated fairly. Then we'll move on to value 8, good faith. Good leaders act in good faith to accomplish the worthwhile goals of the organization. Good faith means doing the right things the right way for the right reasons. Good leaders cooperate with others with the intention of maximizing appropriate organizational success. Now, we've kind of hinted at good faith because, like I said, all these things integrate together, but we're highlighting it now as a separate value. Okay. And that is people who are sub-optimizing, self-serving, and doing things for other reasons than good faith. Implicit in good faith is honesty. Implicit in good faith is concern for others. Implicit in good faith is concern for the welfare of the organization. So operating, like we said, with doing the right things the right way for the right reasons in this context is good faith. We move on to value 9, accountability. And this is a very key in families as well as business.
Oh, yes.
So is good faith in families as well as business. Like you said, most of these apply both, somewhat differently, but in different contexts, but they apply. Everyone is accountable. Now, some people may shudder at the thought and think that somehow that's oppressive. Actually, it's not. In my mind, accountability is a good thing because accountability connects us with other people. It helps us to find our place productively with other people.
Yeah, I think it's a key word there, productively.
Yes,
yeah,
productively.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. People are accountable to themselves, to other people, and to God. Good leaders maintain professionalism and expect others to do so also. When I work in business, I practice, and most other people practice, what I kind of informally call the rules. And that was courtesy, respect, and professional behavior. People who didn't conduct themselves that way soon became obvious in a negative way. Yeah. So then good leaders make and keep commitments. That's one of the important elements of accountability. They follow up and they hold others accountable without being overbearing. There's a difference between being overbearing and just following up. The expectation is that when we say we're going to do something, or when we're expected to do something, that we're going to do that thing, and that shouldn't be a big shock to the person who was expected to do it. But to be treated in an overbearing manner when being followed up with is something that's inappropriate at all times. Good leaders also get the facts and they take appropriate action. And that appropriate action, if we can let our minds go back to You know, the 3 reasons why an employee may not want to do something that was asked. 1 is it may cause a problem. 2 is they may not know how. And 3 is there may be a real performance problem in terms of their attitude and their willingness to cooperate.
Right.
And so a good leader would take appropriate action in each of those situations. Okay, value 10, communication. Good leaders share information and disseminate knowledge. Good leaders give honest, timely, and realistic updates. Obviously, there are times and topics where confidentiality is appropriate. However, good leaders don't hoard or manipulate information to gain power or personal advantage.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all met the knowledge hoarder who, you know, finds his or her power by keeping other people in the dark and seeming to know what others don't know and doing nothing to enlighten them. So, face-to-face communication is generally the most effective method of communication for being understood quickly, because you have a chance to ask questions and read their facial expressions or their body language and get feedback.
Yeah, quickly and correctly.
That's right.
Because text doesn't always convey the right message.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Seeing others' expressions and body language facilitates comprehension and exchanging ideas. If face-to-face communication is not practical, communication by telephone is generally the second most flexible method to interact. I know in my past work experience, whenever I could go talk to somebody about something, that would be my first step. Then if I couldn't, if it was urgent enough, I needed to see them before a certain time, and I couldn't see them in person, a telephone was my next step. If quick comprehension is the goal, communication in writing is the least effective. However, written communication is very useful when a paper trail is needed, and that would include for legal purposes or for documentation and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, value 11, productivity.
Before we hit that one, just
Yes.
step back into the communication for a second, because we're faced in a generational kind of issue these days where the millennial generation defaults right to number 3.
Right.
And that makes communication a real challenge.
Yes, it does, because you know, there's a lower level of understanding. You don't see the heart, the mind, the personality of the person when you're, you know, just sending an email or sending a text or something like that.
Well, and I've seen experiences of where you know, some people just cannot make a phone call or just will not talk to someone in person because
I've heard of an experience of that recently.
Yeah, okay. Talk about me? No.
No, I'm talking about a young girl whose mother encouraged her to contact her teacher to arrange some advanced classes for in high school for pre-college, and the girl's response was, "I can't do that. I just can't do that."
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to.
Yeah. How do you function? How do you function in the world? Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So value 11, productivity. Businesses are formed to produce a product or service. Now, again, that's different than a family. There's, you know, a commercial product or service motivation for a business. In a family, we're trying to produce good people and happy lives.
Correct.
So, but still, many of these apply. To do so cost effectively, they want their employees and processes to be efficient. Good leaders understand the need for reasonable process efficiency and for successful results. Successful results are results which contribute to the overall well-being of the organization. Achieving reasonable process efficiency is more than just doing things faster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen situations where people, you know, believed that being more efficient was just, you know, if their job was to stamp widgets, then they would just stamp widgets faster. Well, there's a limit as to how many times how fast that wrist can go, and how many times that elbow can jerk before the elbow wears out. What if the whole process needs to be changed to something that's completely more efficient, like let's say a machine stamp that just goes, or in a computer processing environment, instead of having people do all the kind of dumbbell work, let the computer system do the dumbbell work, and then the person does the higher level thinking.
There you go.
But the idea of just doing the dumbbell work faster is the enemy to getting to the higher level thinking position. If a process makes one function faster but reduces overall organizational efficiency, suboptimization has occurred. Suboptimization means putting in place processes that reduce overall organizational efficiency. And good leaders don't suboptimize. So for instance, if a person says, well, I can make my machine run faster. And so they make the machine run faster, and then they build up a lot of unfinished inventory around their workspace, which people stomp all over because they're going past it. And the people before them, on the processes before them, can't work any faster. And the people on the process at the end can't work any faster. They're just suboptimizing. They're looking great on their machine, but they're causing waste and inefficiency by going faster.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So good leaders understand that and don't suboptimize. And so when evaluating process improvements, good leaders consider the impact of the new process and the effect on overall organizational well-being. Pretty simple concept. And then last of all, now we've been kind of a little hard on managers, especially in the title of this book, but I think I want to make it clear, and I think we all understand clearly, that managers are fellow workers. They have a job to do, and they need to do their job. We need managers, and we need good managers. Managers are not superior human beings. That should be obvious at this point in our discussion. Just because I've been a manager, you're a manager, many people are managers, and all of us need to understand that just because we're managers, we are not, that doesn't make us a superior human being. It's a job. That's our job, is to manage.
Well, and really, everybody's a manager.
Yes, to some degree and in some
You
context.
manage over those areas that you are responsible for.
Exactly.
Or you manage your life.
Exactly.
Or you manage, your sock drawer. Everybody manages
You're
something.
right. That's totally true. Totally true. However, like we said, however, managers have a definite job to do, just like every other employee in an organization. And managers are paid to manage. And we'll talk about the different aspects of that. A manager's job is to oversee, organize, administer, lead, coordinate, coach, and counsel. That's the pure core of what I believe managers are supposed to do. Managers are not paid to do employees' jobs for them. And many managers fall into that trap. Managers are paid to see that employees do their jobs effectively and successfully. So that's a pretty primordial type of realization, but managers sometimes lose sight of that. A good manager is a good leader. And we talked about that kind of at the beginning of the whole process. Good leaders expand their influence and impact by delegating, which lets others develop skills and gain experience. Mm-hmm. I realize as a manager that although I may have had good ideas and may be able to do a few things well, that if I interfaced or interacted with other people who were competent and got their input, then my ideas got better. And if I let them use, I delegated to them and gave them the opportunity to use their skills and abilities, then my reach became broader and my impact became better because I wasn't doing everything. Other talented people were doing everything, and we were all working together to accomplish a common goal. And that's...
So the old adage of, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, really is not a true statement.
In the absolute context, it is a limiting statement.
Exactly.
It is an unproductive statement.
There you go. There you go.
In the specific instance, there may be a few moments of truth to that.
Yes, yes.
But as a general rule, it would not be something one would want to live by.
Yeah, in a team environment, when you have your role, you can't do everyone else's role.
That's right.
And so it fits perfectly. That's not right.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So good managers increase productivity and organizational success by managing effectively. So we'll ask ourselves the rhetorical question again, who is a leader? And example one, David is a customer service representative. He gets along well with others, makes timely suggestions to improve processes, and he works creatively to achieve company goals. Other employees listen to David because he has good ideas and he is helpful. Now we'll ask ourselves, is David a leader?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. He's taking care of his job. He's doing his job adequately and well. He's recognized by his coworkers that he does things well, and so they probably follow his example, which is a great leadership skill.
Excellent.
So, yeah, he's definitely a leader.
Okay, so we'll ask ourselves the question again. Only we'll use example 2, and manager Bob, who's not just a customer service representative,
Okay.
he's a manager. He is bored and indifferent. He only does what's necessary to do his job, and he's not interested in helping or developing other people. He makes no suggestions for process improvements, and he gives no input when others have new ideas. Now, is Bob a leader?
Absolutely not.
No,
His
absolutely.
co-workers, his customers in the business, whatever, will not follow Bob anywhere.
Yeah, so the purpose of this section is to clearly establish in reality that leadership and management are two different things.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Now we'll go to our first core value, or our good leadership value, plan ahead.
Okay.
Now, Manager William prides himself on his agility and his ability to wing it. His secretary Alicia keeps his calendar up to date for him and tries to keep him on track. However, when she reminds him of upcoming events, William is resentful and feels his authority is being insulted.
Oh boy.
Alicia is constantly stressed by having to get information and make arrangements for William at the last minute. William is clueless about Alicia's stress, but he is frequently annoyed by what he perceives as Alicia's disorganization and incompetence. What are your thoughts?
Poor Alicia.
Yeah.
I bet she comes to work every day stressed,
Yes.
concerned about her future. I can tell her heart's in the right place. She's trying to do her job properly, but she's not given that chance because, what's his name, William?
Yeah, William.
William just is difficult to deal with.
Exactly.
So William needs to sit back and say, Alicia, what's your function? I will do what you tell me to do, because that's what she's there for.
Sure, in her area of expertise. And his lack of planning is the core of most of this misery.
I certainly understand the idea of flying by the seat of your pants. There are times I do that.
Well, we have to sometimes.
And sometimes more than I should, because we've done that before, we can do it again like this, and that isn't always the case. Taking a few minutes to plan things out makes total sense.
Very good. Okay, example 4. Manager Kira is organized and efficient. She plans her schedule of work deliverables at least a month in advance. She makes sure she has gathered all required information well ahead of when it will be needed. She arranges in advance to have all the tools and materials she needs to execute any scheduled real-time action. She is always on time with her reports and is usually ahead of any due dates required. What are your thoughts?
I wish I was her. That's my thought. I am not her. I used to teach project management at UVU, and that's awesome. She's doing a great job. She's got things well organized, well in control. She's ahead of the game. She's doing a fine job.
Excellent. So Kira is a good example for us to look up to.
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking now at in the context of the best excuse is the one you don't have to make. Example 5. Manager Mary's team had a significant project to complete by the end of the month. Mary had weekly staff meetings with her team, during which she spent time joking with team members and gossiping about office events. Much to Mary's surprise, the project was not finished on the due date. The next day, the department director, Larry, followed up, wanting to know the project's status. Mary had to inform him the project wasn't done. Larry wanted to know why. Mary wasn't really sure why. Projects just have a way of getting behind, she said. What are your thoughts?
Well, reality check for Mary. She needs to be told somewhere, either whether from her staff or from her manager, that Mary, you need to keep up on things. There's a time and a place for fun. All teams have to have fun to work together in some form, but it can't be the 24/7 kind of activity in that position. She has functions to fulfill, and she needs to get them done.
Exactly. Looking at another example here. Manager Richard set up and ran a complicated cash flow allocation process between the 25th and the end of each month. The software system he used allocated funds based on changeable data, which was posted into the system monthly by another department. For funds to be allocated correctly, the data had to be current and accurate on the day Richard ran the allocation report. Each month, well in advance of the run date, Richard advised key staff on the in the other department what date he planned to run the allocation report. On the day he planned to run the report, Richard asked key staff in the other department to review the posted data and confirm it was accurate. Because the data posted on the system was correct, the cash flow allocation process Richard ran consistently produced correct outcomes. What are your thoughts?
Okay. I was getting a little lost up front, but it makes sense now at the end here. Richard was just keeping track and alerting the rest of the organization of what needed to happen at certain times just to keep those cogs moving, to keep the machines running in the operation. So, some people might think that he's he's thinking too much or just getting in the way, but no, those are important steps that have to be met. So I think he did a good job in just keeping everybody in line, keeping everybody informed. Communication is a very important thing, as we talked about also in the past. So everybody knew the expectations, and as long as they were met, things were smooth.
Excellent.
Am I passing so far? I'm doing okay?
You are. You're doing, the comments of excellence
these are totally from the cuff. I'm not making this stuff.
I'm not grading you. I'm just
good.
saying how much I concur with your insights and observations.
Awesome.
So we'll look at the concept now. Ask, don't order.
Okay.
Okay, example 7. Manager Mike looked down at the accounting clerk Tricia and said, "Go to the mailroom and see if there's a package for me."
I like the tone of voice there. That was good.
Yeah, reluctantly, Tricia interrupted her work and went to the mailroom. She felt like Mike had no respect for her whatsoever. What are your thoughts?
Mike has no respect for her whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, tone of voice makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
He could have said the exact same words with a much more pleasing, happy, helpful tone, and that probably would not have interfered with her life as much. But that tone of the order, the demand, that just doesn't make anybody happy, and it interferes with what's going on.
Exactly. So, take another example of ask, don't order. On the way to a meeting, manager Sarah realized she left an important portfolio on top of her desk. Unfortunately, she would be late if she went back to retrieve the portfolio. Seeing one of her direct reports, she smiled and politely asked, "Would you be willing to help me out?" "Sure," said Brad. "What would you need me to do?" "I left a black portfolio on top of my desk," replied Sarah. "Would you please get it and bring it to me in room 415? "Glad to help," said Brad. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. She not only recognized the fact that she made a mistake, which is part of sometimes the problem if you don't recognize the error of your own ways, but she was able to get help in a very pleasing way. What was his name, Mike?
Brad.
Brad. He feels now elevated in some way. He was given a task, as simple as it might be, but he was able to help management and fulfill things. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Sure, and he felt respected, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we'll take a look at an example of get input from other competent people and consider alternatives.
Okay.
So, example 9. Manager Carla wants her direct reports to consistently agree with her ideas. She is neither intelligent nor creative. She obtained her management position by longevity and by fawning on superiors. When selecting people for her team, she only hires individuals who demonstrate blind obedience to her. Team problem-solving discussions are short. An issue is raised. 1 or 2 general comments are made by team members. Then Carla comes up with a solution to which all team members quickly agree. Processes implemented by Carla's team.
There's no choice, yes.
No choice. Processes implemented by Carla's team consistently lack efficiency and innovation.
Wow. Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
Carla is, I had a thought in my mind, it just went away, but she is in fear.
Yeah.
She is running the operation with a total fear of everybody. She has a problem with any other input. She thinks she has to be the one. She has to be the one to determine these things because she has fear of losing it all. In doing that, she's turning everybody off. Nobody wants to be in that team. Nobody wants to work with Carla. They are forced to work with Carla, so they put up with this. I know people that are like this.
Yeah, sure.
I've seen them in my life.
These didn't come out of the air. They
no,
came
absolutely.
Out of real life.
I know a gal that that works for Carla, and she will, she'll communicate with me about how terrible her days are, you know, and she just can't stand to be around Carla because of the circumstances. So, yeah, Carla's not making a very good work environment for anybody, including herself.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So take another example here of get input from other competent people and consider alternatives. Manager Janet has led several successful projects which have increased efficiency and saved money. She is intelligent and creative. She obtained her management position by being productive and innovative. When selecting people for her team, she only hires people who think independently and share their ideas. Mm-hmm. Team problem-solving discussions are lively. An issue is raised, and team members ask questions, give input, and propose alternative solutions. Processes implemented by Janet's team consistently improve efficiency and are innovative. What are your thoughts?
I love that. There's on our whiteboard in our office, we have a little acronym of the letters and so forth, and I haven't got them all written out here, but basically it's, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions.
Exactly.
And that just enables the entire organization. If you see an issue, you see a problem, think first, how can we solve this? And think maybe multiple ways of solving that problem. And then bring that up to your manager. That shows a lot of responsibility on your own part, ownership of your own job, if you bring solutions to the table. These are wonderful. I think that every organization needs to have a time where you can say, okay, here's the situation, how can we solve this? And you may not be able to solve it in the first conversation. It may take a day to solve something. Mm-hmm. But given that time of research and thought and talking it over with each other, you'll always find a better solution.
Right, that is so true. Okay, let's take a look at the concept, make decisions based on the merit of the idea. Example 11. Manager Carla met with her team to discuss a process.
Is this the same Carla?
Let's just see. This is Carla. Yes.
Okay.
It's got to be
already.
The same,
I don't like this.
the same Carla. Okay. Manager Carla met with her team to discuss a process problem. She was vain and felt very superior. In fact, this gives more insight into Carla.
Okay.
We felt that perhaps in our first exposure to her that her motive and drive was fear of which it partially was. But we find there are other elements to her deficient performance. And so we read again, she was vain and felt very superior, knowing she was the boss of everyone there.
Okay.
They always come to me for answers, thought Carla smugly. Displaying a condescending expression, she addressed the group. What's the problem this time? A newer member of her team, Alicia, hesitatingly spoke up. Some customer service representatives are complaining that the order input system is slow and awkward to use. Whiners, thought Carla, frowning. We've heard this complaint before, she said impatiently.
Oh, okay, so it's not a new problem.
Yeah. Christy, who had been a member of Carla's team for years, laughed. The complaint probably came from a new employee who just doesn't understand the system. The long-term employees never complain. They're used to how the system works. We have too many new employees, commented Jane, who had also been on Carla's team for years. The younger employees just don't have a good work ethic. They're always complaining and wanting to change things. Yeah, said Christy. Most of the younger employees only last a few months anyway. Then they job hop to somewhere else.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Alicia believed that younger employees would stay longer if the company's systems weren't so frustrating. However, she decided to remain silent because she didn't want to appear disloyal. Well, the solution is obvious, pronounced Carla in an all-knowing tone. The training department just needs to give new employees better training. All the employees on Carla's team nodded in agreement, including Alicia.
Oh, no.
The boss had spoken, and that was the end of the discussion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I could talk a long time about this one. And
feel free.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Well, Carla's got issues.
Yes.
And we've already pointed those out. You know, her fear, her threatening circumstances, and her superiority complex that she's got. But what strikes me the biggest in this conversation is the lack of interest, desire, or need for change. Operations, organizations that functioned in a certain way 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, everything's different. Everything has changed. And an organization or a manager, or a manager especially, that can't embrace the idea of change to improve is going to be left behind. Leaders embrace change when needed.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize if change is needed, and they'll embrace that. But Carla is not ready for change.
No, not at all.
Not ready for change, and her team just will not stand up to her, and, well, except for the one. That's why they leave, I guess. They all leave after a few months because change is not welcome.
Right, exactly right. Okay, let's take a look at another example of make decisions based on the merit of the idea. Manager Janet met with her team to discuss a process problem. She looked forward to hearing their ideas and discovering a solution. Melissa, said Janet, would you share with the rest of the team the systems concern you've identified? Yes, responded Melissa, a new team member. Some customer service representatives are complaining that the order input system is slow and awkward to use. Sounds similar, doesn't it?
I think it must be in the next room over from Carla.
Okay, so what specific problems exist? Asked team member Randy, genuinely interested. I'm not completely sure, replied Melissa. However, our team could spend some time working with customer service representatives to find out. Should we also invite someone from the IT staff? Asked Janet. I think so, commented team member Rebecca, but we need to be careful about how much of their time we use. You know how busy those guys are. Good point, remarked Melissa. Who wants to coordinate with the customer service manager and set up times to work with customer service representatives? Asked Janet. Melissa volunteered to coordinate schedules, and 3 members of Janet's team also volunteered for the project. 1 week later, Janet held a meeting to follow up on the customer service complaints. By that time, specific order entry process problems had been identified. The follow-up meeting was attended by Janet and the members of her team who worked with the customer service representatives. 3 customer service representatives and 2 representatives from IT also attended the meeting. An open discussion took place in which various alternative solutions were suggested, and the pros and cons of each solution were analyzed. All attendees actively participated and carefully considered the merit of each idea proposed. After a thorough and probing discussion, Janet determined that the best solution was apparent to all. A cost analysis of the proposed solution was done, and a management decision was made to implement the system improvements. What are your thoughts?
Again, and that's a lengthy story problem, but it really illustrates a lot of things. Janet is not a manager. She's a leader. She is empowering the whole team to take ownership, to research, to create ideas and solutions. Janet is creating lots of managers within her organization, or her, in her department. That's good management all the way through the process. Her team will be happy to work there. Her team will love to come to work every day and enjoy what's going on because they have a part in what their work lives are like, and how they do things. So they're really doing well. They really do. I like Janet. I think she would be a great manager to work with or for, and work with especially because it's really a shared thing.
Okay, so now we'll be focusing on be interested in other people and ask them questions. Example 13. Manager Stewart felt he was a high-status person and believed his direct reports and others were impressed with his importance. He enjoyed talking about himself and his experiences, and he did so every time he had an opportunity. Some of his stories were exciting, and at first, most people enjoyed hearing them. After a time, though, many of those who worked with Stewart began to feel isolated and put off by his constant self-focus.
I've known many Stewarts.
Yes, right. Some less experienced people who were impressed by Stewart's self-perceived status felt intimidated and hesitated to express their ideas. What are your thoughts?
Oh boy, like I said, I know many Stewarts, and I've probably been a Stewart myself a couple of times in my life, maybe a couple of times. Stewart is because Stewart is all about himself, he's
Right.
not showing any concern or caring about anyone else. And that's an obvious statement. It's probably too obvious.
I don't
But-
think so. I think it's a very insightful statement. It's not too obvious.
Okay.
I think it's
okay.
core and key to what the problem is here.
Yeah, he's more concerned about what he knows, what he's done, what he wants to do,
Right,
and doing it his way.
right.
So because of that, he's not open for any suggestion, any thoughts, any ideas. I mean, I've been on both sides of this character here a little bit, but when I deal with Stewarts, I have to just kind of smile and move on, because you can't say much to Stewart that will have any impact.
Right,
So it's not a good relationship at all.
exactly, exactly. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Manager Mark was genuinely interested in other people and enjoyed getting to know them. His interest in others helped them feel significant. Although he didn't necessarily agree with everyone's point of view, other people felt Mark understood them. Consequently, people were confident Mark would treat them fairly and had their well-being at heart. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's the old adage of, you give enough people what they need and you will have all you need, basically. I kind of misquoted that, but that's what Mark's doing. Mark is giving back to people that need for understanding, for compassion, for friendship, for whatever that might be, all those different things, and they are then willing to give back to him whatever he needs,
Right.
in some form, whether it's respect or leadership skills or whatever it might be. So, yeah, just having it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at all just to sit back for a second and listen.
That's right.
It doesn't take much to put yourself in their shoes for that moment, or to see things from their perspective. You do that and you can change a whole lot of things in your operation.
That's right. And I think that what's at least important for me to emphasize, and I think you would agree, that Manager Mark was genuinely interested. He wasn't doing this as a technique, as
Good point.
as a way of manipulating people.
No.
He actually enjoyed being involved with other people and interacting with other people and being interested. And
Well, and that's going to open the doors for the other values, of listening and giving people, make decisions based on merits of ideas, that we're treating everybody as equals. All those things relate to how you care about other people.
That's right. That's it. So true. Exactly. Now let's take a look at all people are of equal significance to God, regardless of talents, abilities, or circumstances.
Okay.
Example 15. Manager Alex almost felt sorry for the poor fools that weren't as capable as him. With the education his parents paid for, he was able to secure a high-paying job right out of college. He lived a very comfortable life, but hey, he deserved it. He was smarter than most and good-looking too. He tried to be polite to inferior people.
Oh yeah, this is all about me, right? Sure.
He tried to be polite to inferior people, but sometimes he was impatient with these lesser beings. One of his favorite pastimes was mocking those below him on the ladder of skills, abilities, and circumstances. He enjoyed being superior. What are your thoughts?
He's going to be a lonely person for a long time.
Yeah.
But what struck me more, the obvious things of Mark's situation, is that there are Marks out there that are in a not superior ranking that will mock, put down anybody above them.
Right.
It works both directions.
And in this case, you're talking about Alex.
I'm sorry,
in
Alex.
this example.
Excuse me,
I totally understand.
I got all the names confused
No,
now.
no, I understand.
Yeah,
But
Alex is not, he's looking down on people. Well, there are people that are from a much lower, not to put them down, but a much lower level that are mocking those above them
right.
versus down.
Yes.
It's just a no-win all the way around. If you just need to be able to put people in the same level and
Right.
and work for a solution, not
Right.
look to tear down the connections.
Yeah, so basically, again, the reality of and the validity of the point that on a human being standard, life is not a hierarchy. We are equal as human beings. And to view human beings on a hierarchical perspective is to kind of distract ourselves with a false concept and lead ourselves into some foolish thinking and conclusions.
Correct, correct.
Now,
Good
let's
answer, good answer.
There you go. That's what I think it's worth emphasizing, because there are perspectives that inherently lead us into foolish thinking, and perspectives that help us keep our thoughts and points of view straightened out.
Good, good.
So let's take another example on that. Manager Mason felt very blessed to have the talents, capabilities, and education he'd received. With the education his parents paid for, sounds familiar, he was able to secure a high-paying job right out of college. He lived a very comfortable life, for which he was thankful. He also felt fortunate to be blessed with intelligence and good looks. Very consistent, different point of view. Mason consistently treated other people with courtesy and respect, regardless of their skills, abilities, and circumstances. Although he was acutely aware that people's characters ranged from good to evil, he sincerely believed that all human beings are of equal significance to God. Therefore, he felt that all people should be treated fairly. He also believed that all people should be held responsible for their actions. What are your thoughts on that?
He's a very even-minded, even attitude across the board. Everybody has attitudes, and that's the wrong aptitudes, and everyone has an offering for each other. I mean,
right, exactly.
Can contribute to everybody. So I like his attitude. It's a good attitude to have. I hear gratitude also.
Yes,
quite a
you
bit
do
in
hear
that conversation.
Yeah.
That he is grateful for the blessings he's had, and grateful that he thinks he looks all right, but not better than anybody else. But he looks good. Grateful to his parents for the education he had. Grateful for all things, and I think that gratitude helps level people out if we're thankful for everything.
Yes, and I think implicit in this also is I would see the quality of humility, which is achievable, or is I guess brought into perspective by an awareness of accountability.
Yeah.
He is accountable to himself. He's accountable to others. He's accountable to God, and so that helps him to feel his perspective in a little more humble way.
Yeah.
In his place in life, and also the realization that he needs to treat everybody fairly.
Yeah.
So, good faith. Manager Ellen, who worked for Company A, had a good thing going in her unit, and she intended to keep it that way. Her team was responsible to forecast the financial impact of policy changes. Ellen routinely altered her team's forecasts so she could avoid any unintended error that might possibly make her look bad. She didn't simply add a disclaimer acknowledging the reality that unforeseen factors could affect outcomes. Instead, she exaggerated the anticipated costs of policy changes involving mild risk, and she also understated forecast gains from mildly risky policy changes that could increase profits. As a result, the company failed to act on several worthwhile opportunities, therefore missing out on additional revenues. What are your thoughts?
She's a busy person, isn't she?
Yeah.
So it sounds like she is actively manipulating, changing things for just her own image.
Yeah. To protect herself, her own image.
Yeah.
Is that acting in good faith?
No, it's not. Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, her motives are not to help the company move forward, but to protect her own image.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so that's not good at all.
Not at all. Okay, let's take a look at the next good faith example. Manager Helen, who worked for Company B, felt the pressure of her team's responsibility to forecast the financial impact of policy changes. Similar situation again. She knew significant decisions affecting the company's future would be made based on her team's forecasts. She also understood if her team's forecasts were wrong due to carelessness or incompetence, she would be held accountable. However, Helen always acted in good faith to accomplish worthwhile company goals. She did add disclaimers concerning unforeseen factors and risk levels, but she gave honest forecasts based on available data. As a result of her team's efforts, Company B adopted policies which maximized performance. What are your thoughts?
Truth sometimes hurts.
Yeah.
but her intentions were always to help the company.
Right.
Or to help the project. And so even if her forecasts were not always glowing, which is not a good answer if it's the truth, then she's still a great benefit to the company and to
Right.
the operation, because her intent is to help the company through whatever storm is ahead.
That's right.
I think that's an awesome, she's doing a great job.
I think so. Okay, so the next value that we'll talk about by example is accountability. Example 19. Manager Jim was completely unreliable. He readily agreed to do whatever he was asked, but his commitments were worthless. He had more excuses than a garbage can has flies, and he could lie better than a con man. He always claimed he did exactly what he was supposed to do, but he never did. His greatest skill was appearing to comply while he artfully evaded. His second greatest skill was blaming his failures on others while taking credit for others' accomplishments. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm confused. What's his name again? This is
It's
Jim.
Jim.
I'm confused at what Jim's motives are.
Have you ever seen anyone in a management position like Jim?
Maybe not as extreme.
Yeah.
I've seen parts of that.
I have too.
But I'm just wondering, why? Why would he? What is his motivation for not performing or being productive in any way? It makes no sense.
Right.
How can he even attempt to? I mean, how can he even be thinking that he'll hold a job?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Like I said, I've seen somebody that inspired this little example here, and although this is
But his name wasn't Jim.
His name wasn't Jim.
Okay, just making sure.
What were his motives? He was a manipulator. He was self-centered. He got satisfaction out of being the center of attention. He would create a problem by saying something kind of somewhat false about something that put them in about someone and put them in a bad light.
Okay.
He would then work with that individual, creating a bond of confidence to give so that they would confide in him. So, what were his motivations? Being able to lazily do his job while maintaining some kind of power and influence, and being a focal point of attention for drama that he primarily created himself. So this is an odd character.
Okay, I can understand the motivation.
And the lack of honesty, lack of a work ethic, lack of a sense of accountability, satisfaction by getting attention and being in a power position and manipulating. Right. Those are warped values, but they do exist and can motivate people.
Yeah, so if you are in that position of power based upon or because of all these different things that you're doing, I have seen managers like this.
Okay, good.
That maintain their operation because of that power. Mm-hmm. And even other managers or leadership had a hard time dealing with changing that because of the power that person would yield. Or wield, excuse me. So, okay, I can understand that. It just seems like, he's got to perform, or the whole thing's going to fall apart. And the ones I've seen have fall apart.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens. A self-destructive cycle will last for a while, but it won't last forever.
Correct. Yeah.
And when the seeds of failure are built into the approach, failure comes.
Yeah.
Okay, example 20, accountability. Manager James was consistently reliable. Whenever he said he would do something, he did what he said in a timely manner. And he gave a legitimate reason why he couldn't do so if he couldn't. Mm-hmm. James was honest and had integrity. His greatest skill was enlisting the cooperation and support of others. He always sincerely thanked people for their help, and he always openly acknowledged others' work and contributions. What are your thoughts?
That good guys can finish first.
Yes, and that is so true.
That is Jim. He is, that is James, excuse me. He's doing it right. He's doing it all right. He's grateful, he's acknowledging, he's asking, he's upfront, he's truthful, the business will succeed just because of the fact he's doing all these things.
That's right. And I guess we would ask ourselves the question, who do we want to work for?
Yeah.
Jim or James?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think James.
I think James wins that one.
Yeah. Accountability, one more example, and this will be a little bit of a long one. Manager Susan frequently had occasion to work with other units within her company. Even though she had no line authority over the employees in these other units, she was very effective in holding them accountable. Her technique was simple. She contacted the right people in the other units and explained specifically what she needed to accomplish. Then she asked them if they were willing to take the needed action. If they agreed, she thanked them. Then she asked them when they thought they would be able to complete the needed action. They responded with what they believed was a realistic time frame. Again, she thanked them. Susan realized that many people don't do what they say they will do in the time frame they said they would. So she waited until the day after the time frame they gave her, and then she followed up. Her follow-up approach was consistent. She contacted them and pleasantly asked them how things were coming along on the action they had agreed to complete. When they told her they weren't done, she never got angry. Instead, she pleasantly asked them how much more time they would need. They gave her a new time frame, and she pleasantly thanked them. Then, the day after the new time frame, she pleasantly followed up again.
There's a pattern going on here.
Yeah, she continued to follow up using the same technique until the action was completed as agreed. When the action was completed, Susan genuinely thanked them. Over time, people in the other company units grew to understand two things about Susan. People understood that if they told Susan they would do something, she expected them to do it. They also understood and appreciated the fact that Susan treated them pleasantly. The influence of those two realities motivated people to give Susan's requests priority. What are your thoughts?
It seems like it's a long cycle or a long chain to get to that point where they will give her that kind of role. I like the fact that she's grateful. That means so much. I like the fact that she gives them the opportunity. She doesn't hound them through the process, though I think a good manager needs to be on top of what's going on. So I'm not sure if I agree with the idea of waiting until the day after totally
Right.
for feedback. But she is certainly a mild manager, if you will, because of the fact that she's not aggressive, she's not poking anybody.
Right. Now, one of the things to remember in this example is that she's not dealing with direct reports. I totally agree with your observation that a manager can't be so laid back that he lets everybody else dictate what happens, or she lets everybody else dictate what happens. In the case of the manager dealing with direct reports, the same approach of saying, here's the thing that we need to accomplish. Are you willing to do that? Yes. How much time do you think it would be necessary for you to accomplish that? Then if they give a time frame that's realistic for the time frame, the deadlines that you have, you say, well, of course we need to have this done by the 5th. Do you think you could do it a little faster? Yes, I do. And then following up.
Right.
Following up in the intermediary time frames, like a couple of days later, how's it coming along? Everything falling? Do you need any extra help? Or that would be the approach I would take for a direct report. In this unique circumstance, she's dealing with other company units, which
she has no direct
direct line authority over them. She's going to, in this case, we assume she's going to be, by implication, she's dealt with them many times before. So there's an ongoing inherent motivation for the other company units to cooperate because they're part of the company.
Yeah.
But she can't just go throw her weight around and keep, so this is kind of a unique technique for a specific non-direct report situation. And so obviously she has, in the setting up of the time frames, she asks them how much, if they will do it, and by virtue of it's their job to do it, they should say yes. She asked them how long it will take. We assume that she's communicated if there are any deadline dates in there that are, absolute.
Sure.
Then, so instead of, like you said, she doesn't, as you pointed out, she doesn't hound them. She lets them complete their cycle. She knows darn good and well that a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'll do that just to get them off the phone, and then they don't. So she follows up the day after they've made their commitment, and it's so that kind of takes the hounding quality out of it. It just leaves the accountability quality in. The not getting mad, there's no ongoing resentment. You know, we can treat people badly once, but then there's the next time.
Yeah.
How do they feel about us after we've treated them badly? So it's never a good idea to treat people badly.
So even though there are hiccups in the process,
Yes.
she maintains that good chain.
Yeah, she maintains the respect, the courtesy,
Yep.
and she doesn't destroy the relaldship, although
Right.
she maintains accountability.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in this case,
She's done well. Yeah.
Yeah. In this case, then the reputation is built. I was in a very similar situation where I worked for a large company, and I worked in a business-to-business field sales. It was my job to generate these sales, and which made the company money. It was the engineer's job to design and manufacture the product. So when I called up and I asked them if they could do such and so, it was their job to agree, but yet I couldn't like order them around and treat them in any way, and I shouldn't anyway.
Right.
So then I used the very same technique. I would call from a distance, how long will it take you to do that? X number of days. Okay, fine. So X number of days passed. They didn't do it, and frequently they didn't. It wasn't a big shock. It was like, okay, I expect the first 1 or 2 times they're not going to come through.
Sure.
So I'd call up, how's that coming along? Oh yeah, man, I didn't quite get it done.
It's like having your car in the shop, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of like that. And then, so when do you think you'll be able to finish that? Oh yeah, well I'll give you this date, you know. And then if I needed to do that once or twice, but after a while, people get the idea. When I called up and asked them to do something, again, all legitimate company business, all well within the scope of their responsibility. I just had no direct line authority. When I asked them to do something, they knew they were going to do it. They knew when I asked them for a commitment, they knew that I was taking it as a commitment, and they knew I wasn't just going to forget about it. And so that tends to establish relationship and a sense of respect for the process over time.
Gotcha.
So this was a little bit of a specialty situation, which definitely was not all inclusive to explain a direct line management approach, which is different.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to communication. Example 22. Manager Derek was an artist at lobbing low information emails. His emails always required at least 2 follow-up clarifications to be understood. No matter how urgent or important matters were, Derek felt lobbing an email was sufficient. The information level of Derek's verbal communication was intentionally just as incomplete. He always carefully avoided giving non-required updates, and he shared as little information as possible. Derek was a knowledge hoarder who felt he gained power by withholding information. The more he knew that others didn't know, the more power he felt as he made others pry information out of him. What are your thoughts? Ever met a knowledge hoarder?
Yeah, I can't think of one off specifically, but I'm sure I have. Yeah, not a good team player.
No, not a good team player.
Not a good team player.
Yeah.
You need to be one who will share, and one who will participate, and one who will help each other. Yeah, he's not doing it.
And he's not acting in good faith either.
No.
No, not
correct.
at all.
So
Not
there's a lot of negatives right now. We can go off the list.
Sure, yeah.
For him.
Okay, so communication, example 23, manager Mandy communicated skillfully and freely. She conscientiously gave helpful updates on areas of interest to others. However, she never gossiped nor inappropriately discussed confidential matters. Mandy was well liked and understood by other company employees. She communicated significant matters in person whenever possible. If she wasn't able to communicate in person, she contacted others by telephone. She used written communications primarily for less significant, non-urgent matters or for instances where a paper trail was needed. Mandy's communication style contributed to her efficiency and effectiveness. What are your thoughts?
Mandy seems like one of those just perfect little employees. I'm not really hearing that Mandy has aspirations for management or those kind of things, but she performs her function to the T. Her communication is important, obviously, communicating with all the different parts and the deadlines and the information. She's doing that very well, and she's planning for it too. It's not like it's after the fact. She's planning for that communication to happen at a timely manner or fashion. So Mandy does all right. I like Mandy.
Yeah, she's kind of the way it should be. Productivity, example 24. Manager Ursula ran what she considered to be an efficient unit. She prided herself on the internal effectiveness of her unit's processes. There was a problem though. Her unit's processes caused more work for other company units and reduced overall organizational efficiency. Although Ursula was aware that her unit's processes were suboptimal, she didn't care. She was comfortable with the way things were, and she didn't want to change. What are your thoughts?
Well, giving her the name Ursula, already she had a couple strikes against her. There's only a couple Ursulas that we know about in literature and pop culture. Yeah, she's a hindrance to productivity. There's no, I mean, that's number one. I mean, she's not, by other parts of the company are slowed down or not affected because of what she does. She's a detriment. She's not working well.
Not working well. Okay, so let's take a look at another example on productivity. Manager Nathan consistently and successfully looked for ways to improve efficiency. However, he always considered whether or not potential process improvements helped or hindered achieving overall organizational objectives. Recently, one of his team members came to him with an idea for making a unit process more efficient. After getting input from other competent people and considering alternatives, a new unit process was adopted. However, the new unit process adopted was not the same as the process his team member originally proposed. In fact, the new unit process was not even as efficient as the originally proposed process. The originally proposed process would have worked better for the unit, but it would have negatively impacted other units. It would also have reduced the overall success of the organization. So, an alternative process was developed that worked better for the unit and worked successfully for the entire organization. What are your thoughts?
So I'm a little bit lost here. So Nathan is our manager.
Yeah.
One of his team members
Came
brings
to him
him
with
a good idea.
A good idea.
But the idea was not truly adopted.
No, it wasn't. It was a process improvement for the unit, and it wasn't adopted. And but an improvement that was an improvement for the unit, a process that was improvement for the unit, was adopted. But it wasn't as efficient as the original proposal. And the original proposal wasn't adopted because, although it would have improved the unit's performance, it would have negatively impacted other units. And it would have negatively impacted the overall success of the organization. So an improvement was made that would improve the unit's performance and keep the overall organization humming and working successfully. So that's a little more. That was a little more complex.
Yeah, it is a complex one. Yeah.
Why isn't something faster better? Why isn't something more efficient better? Well, if it causes problems elsewhere,
right.
If it causes an overall reduction in the success of the organization,
right.
Even though it's 10 times better for the unit, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that puts you back into the making decisions based on the merit of the idea.
The merit of the idea, exactly.
Yeah. So great idea. We appreciate that input. We'll use that, but we're going this direction because the greater good, all those things.
It's very insightful. Exactly right.
Yeah, it's very important that way.
So the final value that we'll talk about on a case study level here is managers are fellow workers who have a job to do. So looking at example number 26, manager Ichabod called himself a working manager. The problem was that the work Ichabod did had little to do with managing. He spent his time inordinately performing tasks which other employees were well paid to do. While doing so, Ichabod ignored his responsibility to organize, administer, lead, coordinate, coach, and counsel. Productivity in his unit was very low, innovation was absent, and work-related interpersonal conflicts remained unresolved. The overall goals of the organization suffered severely because Ichabod failed to do his job properly. What are your thoughts?
Ichabod thought he was doing his job properly because he thought he knew how to do it better than anybody else.
There we go.
And so in doing so, and he had all these great employees working for him that were skilled and knowledgeable and sharing and well paid. No, Ichabod was not doing his job well. He was not managing, he was not performing the function he was set to do, which was
Exactly.
to manage this team, not to demonstrate for this team by doing all the work. Yeah, Ichabod needs to take a step back for a second and say, okay, who's my team? How well is my team performing? And why are they not performing like they should be? Oh, it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault. His own accountability.
Right.
He needs to step back and say, okay, this is why I need to step out of this role and just manage.
Right.
He's got a great team, it sounds like. It wasn't getting very far.
Okay, so let's take a look at one more example here. Manager Roxy was unwilling to delegate. She felt she was very capable and wanted things done right. Consequently, she believed she should personally handle all details related to her job. To keep on top of things, she worked long hours and weekends. In time, however, she became exhausted. Eventually, Roxy became a workflow bottleneck, and progress slowed on everything in which she was involved. What are your thoughts?
Well, okay, so we have Roxy who doesn't want to delegate.
Right.
And she feels like she has to do it all herself. Well, she's not maybe doing all the functions of the team, or is she? Is she doing
Well,
everything?
she's-
Is she like Ichabod?
Well, I wouldn't call her like Ichabod, but all items or all details related to her job she had to handle personally.
So she wouldn't, so she wouldn't give any of her quote unquote power or her assignments to anybody else for the help. The
She was
assistance.
unwilling to delegate.
Yeah. So if she can't do that, if she can't delegate and let the team function, then again, it's a recipe for failure. She needs to be able to take a step back, see what the picture is, and guide the boat, and know that there's many people on that boat there to help her. And I think I'm rambling, but
No,
yeah,
I think you're right.
She needs to open up her blinders and get the help she needs.
So instead of, so Roxy was operating on a kind of a one-horse motor. You know, instead of like letting the power of the team add additional horsepower to the management system, then she was the only cylinder. And eventually that cylinder, so to speak, burned itself out. And she, instead of being a manager, she became the unproductive bottleneck through which all things got stuck.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
So it's a little bit. It's almost like Ichabod and her had the same result.
Except
But
Ichabod
through-
was
but
wasting
through-
his time only doing
Their
employee-related work
functions.
and ignoring his managerial responsibilities,
right.
where she was approaching her managerial responsibilities in a way that involved no participation from other
Yes.
employees,
Yep.
and she burned herself out because a manager can't fully fulfill the scope and performance of being a manager by him or herself. A manager needs to allow the rest of the employees to participate in that process.
Right.
So
right.
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So the last example, managers are fellow workers who have a job to do. 28, manager Terrence understood his job. He realized he could expand the positive impact of his efforts by working with and through others. He delegated, he empowered, he coached, and he developed other employees. His trust and confidence in them allowed others to improve their skills and make greater contributions. He combined his vision, abilities, and his work with the work, abilities, and vision of others. By so doing, he enlarged the organization's overall vision and increased the organization's success. What are your thoughts?
Golden child.
Golden child, yeah.
Terrence understands the process. He understands the goals of the business. He understands how to help people grow themselves. He gives them the right amount of responsibility and accountability he's a golden child. He's really done well to help that company succeed.
Very good.
We've just kind of concluded an enlightening 28 case studies that cover in depth really the 12 good leadership values that a good manager should have in their life. And Charles, thanks so much for sharing these with us. Hopefully your mind has gone in the same direction or in different directions to give you some different insights as to what's been going on. We've been talking off camera about how, are we doing this right? Is it correct? And probably there is no wrong, is there?
Well, not as long as we're reasonable.
Awesome. Well, this has been very good. So we want to take just a few minutes and kind of just sum this whole thing up. Very, very insightful things to talk about. One of the questions I have to ask is, so after having gone through this process, you find yourself as, oops, that dumb manager. Okay? Oops, that's me, oops, that's me, oops, that's me. How do you go about
I think I'll interject right here. I think we've all been dumb managers at some point in our life.
Okay, very good.
To pretend that we kind of came out of childhood enlightened and experienced is an illusion. Mm-hmm. I think that the tendency is to kind of be unwise in many ways until we gain a little experience and then become more wise.
Excellent point. Thank you very much. So you find, okay, I need to work on these and work on this. How can you go about setting that change in progress? Okay,
so I think that this is a kind of a challenging idea intellectually and emotionally, and so let's kind of begin to deal with it. One, I think a key element in bringing about a change is understanding or getting a vision of where we want to go.
Okay.
So recognizing the need for change, obviously it's there, but then having a vision or a comprehension or an understanding of where we want to end up. And even if our vision and comprehension isn't totally clear at the beginning of the process,
right,
because our minds and our thoughts are filtered by past perceptions and our comprehensions of the moment. If we can get the best vision we have of where we want to go or what we want to accomplish, and then start taking actions towards arriving at that point, then our awareness and clarity of where we're going will increase. I know that my experience is, and I'm sure it's common for most people, that although I may not, I may start with doing a task that I haven't done a lot before, but just with an idea of, I think I can do this task by taking step A, B, and C. Well, then when I start taking those steps, I find, and actually applying the effort to do the task, I find that there are better ways to do A, B, and C. And so I call them A1, B1, and C1. And then that might evolve to better steps yet. And by the time I've actually completed the task a few times, then I become fairly efficient. And my vision of how to complete the task has changed and improved. And it's much better than at the beginning. So I'd say that's a reality. Another important aspect in changing, like I said, we need to decide where we want to be, but we also need to understand and come to a commitment about why we want to make the change. And is the change better? Because that commitment and that understanding will help sustain us in the difficult time of changing. Our habits, phobias, fears, weaknesses are pretty deeply embedded. And to think that we can change those in an attitude is unrealistic. We may have to continue to confront the same tendency towards weakness 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But if we continue to do that, then eventually those weaknesses will fade and we'll get better and stronger at becoming what we want to become.
I had the thought earlier about the bad manager or the dumb manager being like Ebenezer Scrooge. How we can go through this list of these 12 core values and say, okay, well, no, he's not doing very well in any of these things. But for Ebenezer, it took visitation from 3 or 4 ghosts to change his attitude.
Yeah.
But he did change.
Yes, he did.
I think it's partially because, well, it's because the fact that he was able to see himself through a different set of eyes.
Right.
So, in kind of an answer to you or in conversation, if you're seeing situations at work that you're not quite sure why those are happening the way they are happening, it's time to start opening communication. It's time to start, try, check your motives, and start planning. All these little points, just start doing those things. But the big thing is ask somebody, and hopefully in a very honest and sincere way, is there something that I'm doing that is causing this problem? Is there something that we can do as a team, or look for the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the solution outside of yourself.
Right.
In a managerial type perspective. Is that a weakness to ask that kind of question?
And I would agree with what I know you believe anyway. No, it is not a weakness. It is a strength. To get honest feedback is something that's done sincerely. It's done out of a genuine concern for others and self. It's appropriate. We should be as concerned about ourselves on a level of fairness as we are others, because treating ourselves well and treating others well means treating everybody well. Treating ourselves in a way that or arranging things for ourselves in a way that harms others is harming ourselves. And recognizing that reality, a sincere inquiry as to what we and all of us together can do to make things better is an honest, is a genuine and worthwhile inquiry.
So let me kind of change it up a little bit here. We've talked a lot about examples from what seem to be good-sized businesses. For many years I ran my own business, and I would either do it all myself or I had a few people helping me, very few people. I was constantly wearing many hats. How do I go about becoming a better manager, if you will, and then a better leader when I'm working mostly with myself or with a small team?
Well, that's an excellent question. Obviously, I guess digressing on a conceptual level, we look at a large organization where a manager can purely manage, so to speak. And so the question then that you ask kind of deals with the concept of a working manager. And what is an appropriate involvement for a working manager who actually needs to carry out some of the working functions in the organization in order for the organization to succeed. And the bad example that we used was the person who let go or ignored or failed to carry out his managerial responsibilities while he prided himself on being a working manager and did the work of the employees, neglecting his managerial duties. So the key for a working manager in a small organization who is required to perform some of the working tasks is to maintain his managerial duties, to organize, to oversee, direct, guide, empower, and delegate when possible, encourage and train and facilitate. So as long as the manager continues to perform the management functions as needed in the organization, he can stamp all the widgets he wants and still be a good manager.
Sure. And that made me think of the term balance.
Mm-hmm.
Is if I have to wear multiple hats, I can't let any one hat be dominant.
Right.
Yes, if I'm the manager, if I'm the owner of the business, then yes, that's a dominant hat, but I can't let other parts of the operation fail because I didn't get to them.
Right.
I have to balance myself throughout those.
That's exactly right. I believe that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, cool. We talked earlier in the program, the very beginning, about how these principles are not just simply about business, but they're pretty much for all humankind, and how they might relate to family operations or organizations or those kind of things. How have you seen these same core principles kind of affect family relationships?
Well, I think that the concept of equality, where we recognize and respect that we are all equal human beings, parents as well as children, that, I think we'd all realistically have to acknowledge that we probably always haven't had that perspective in our lives, especially in our maybe less experienced days. But coming to that realization is an important fundamental realization, recognizing the rights and privileges and responsibilities of each of us. And then that recognition then changes how we approach dealing with other family members. The concept of being overbearing and authoritarian engenders resentment and hostility. It's discouraging and even fear-producing for others around. So ask, don't order. Enforce our accountability.
Right.
There has to be accountability. In a business setting, the concept of accountability is pretty simple. If you don't do your job, you don't get a raise, or you don't get a promotion, or you get fired, or get uncorrective action or something. That's a business accountability is, in that sense, less complicated than family accountability, because our relationships are our relationships. We can't fire family members, nor should we even want to. But on the other hand, there has to be accountability. So how do we achieve that accountability? Well, we would have to give guidelines, enforce those guidelines in a reasonable and responsible manner, and educate and train and empower. A person who has a good value system in their own mind is a whole lot easier to deal with than a person who has a bad value system in their mind. So if we're training our family to have a good value system that's productive and useful, they'll be a lot easier to guide than if we are not. So the merit of the idea, if we example that we make decisions not for selfish or self-serving motives, or for I'm the dad, I said so, and I'll pound the table real loud if you don't agree, versus we need to do this thing because it's the thing that's going to be the best for all of us in our situation, or the best for our neighbors, or the best for our school responsibilities or future development. You need to be in at midnight because it's not just because I said so, but because there are activities that go on past midnight that you don't need to be involved in, and that would be harmful to you, and also you're going to be tired, and it's going to affect your judgment. And just because something glitters doesn't mean it's better, and it might actually harm you. So persuasion and long-suffering, we've heard those concepts wisely put before. So all these things, they're all productivity, hard work. We feel better if we work, if we're laying about being lazy and idle. If we don't act in good faith, we need to teach our family to work. We need to teach our family to act in good faith. We need to be accountable, teach our family to be accountable. We need to learn to make decisions based on the merit of the idea. We need to be productive and those kind of things. And communicate. And communication is key.
Right.
Like you said, the idea of open communication, if there is no involvement and no communication, then people are not going to feel like you care about them. And the difficult communications where we realize we messed up and we were unwise, and we have to kind of straighten that out and acknowledge that. That is helpful actually to our family as well as ourselves.
Yeah. I see these points. You can teach your family. You can expect these things to happen in your family, but it also is a major responsibility for you yourself to do these exact same things.
Right.
Teaching by example of all these different principles. So as a family, you can grow all together. Your children will see you being accountable. They'll see you with your good faith. They'll see you with open communication. If your children see you doing these things, it's much easier for them to adopt that.
Very true.
It makes for a much better family. And it works both ways in the business too.
Oh, sure it does.
If you're doing all these things, your employees see you, they do those things, you see them. It's a mutually beneficial change. Awesome, awesome. This has been fun. Thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
with us. Any kind of closing thoughts that you might want to share about these principles?
No, I think that while they are in scope focused on a business application, they are life principles, and they do work as successfully in life, just really realizing that we have different, application or enforcement mechanisms in a business versus a family.
Yeah.
And, that's it.
Okay, very good. Charles, tell us where we can find this book, the name of the book again, and where we can find it.
Okay, the name of the book is 12 Good Leadership Values Which Dumb Managers Don't Understand. You can find it on Amazon.com. You can just go to Amazon, type Charles Amonett in the search bar, and all my books should come up.
Awesome. So easy to find.
Easy to find.
And you'll get it in 2 days if you're a Prime member.
If you're a Prime member, that's what I hear.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you again for being with us and
Thank
sharing
you.
this information and
Thanks
all the
for
work
having
you've
me.
put into this for us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you've enjoyed this program, and we wish you best of luck in putting these core values to use in your life.